Hello everybody and welcome back to Malts and Meeples and my top 100 games of all time, 40 through 31. I'm Petter, and yes, we're continuing the list today, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see all of them that pop up here and to talk about these games and to say probably for every single game, oh man, I really want to play that one again now. So, without further ado, let's get to it. And number 40 is going to be Cthulhu Death May Die from CMON. This one, I haven't gotten to play that many times, but playing it really has been such a fun experience for me because it's a good peanuts and pretzels game that you can grab a handful of dice, chuck them. You're running that kind of line of trying to take down the bad guy, getting in there for attacks, taking hits, taking psychic damage, slowly going insane, and trying to go insane, because that unlocks more powers, abilities, stuff like that, but also trying not to do it too fast so that you end up dead, because, well, that's not gonna help in the end. So it has that really fun kind of bounce to it, and for a game that does have a good amount of narrative to it, it isn't a campaign game, which I kind of wish there was a campaign version of it, because I think there could be some really cool things done with that. But it is also nice to have a bigger box game, a mini style game that just has, well, not a campaign. It's just one-offs that you can play. So I do really appreciate that about Cthulhu and Death May Die. And I will say it is one I want to get to the table again. It would have been perfect for Halloween season to do that. I just didn't have time. Next up on the list at 39 is Burn Cycle. And this is another really big experience of a game. I'm trying to remember the timeline of the game. So, like, robots took over from humanity, and now humanity has taken it back, and you are the robots trying to sneak around and basically survive, infiltrate these giant corporations that are running everything. And it's a really kind of interesting game and system, because you're these robots who, like I said, you're trying to sneak around. It's not a run in there, blow stuff up, kill everything, shoot them. Most of the time you want to avoid as much as possible so you can sneak around and work on completing your missions. And then as you avoid and you go to different rooms, areas, stuff like that, you're trying to hack computer systems. I mean, there's a whole sideboard of purely hacking computer systems that is a lot of fun to do. And you add into that this kind of track. The track basically is going to lose chips on it. It has chips of different colors on it, and those chips determine the actions that you do, I believe, in the order that they're done, because it's programming. You're robots. It's in the order, because, like I said, it's programming. You're going in the proper direction, proper order for the instructions. However, the system degrades over time, and I really appreciate how it does that. And as players, then, you look at the chips you have kind of acquired, and one of the things you can do is swap out chips. So you can swap out for those degraded chips, which will allow you to swap the order of the actions that you're taking. So you're thinking not only about what you want to activate, but what other people might want to activate as well, and what might be degrading over time. It's just a really cool, good system that has a lot of variability, a lot of replayability to it, and oh, so many chips and so many neoprene mats that, I mean, it's Chip Theory Games. What do you expect? So I'm a big fan of this one, and it's one that I've only gotten, again, to play just a few times, a couple times, because it is hard to table, but every time I play it, it is a memorable experience. And yes, I do need to play it again. Next up, we're going much smaller here. We have Sonora. Sonora is a flick and write game. So what's a flick and write game? I mean, it's a roll and write, but instead of rolling dice, you're flicking discs, and where those discs end up on the board determines what sections of the roll and write area you can fill in. Not only what sections, but what numbers you have to work with as well. And there are 4 different areas, and each of them works differently. But what I really enjoy about this one, I mean, besides the fun of it being a flicking game, is that roll and write aspect, because there's just so many combos, so many things that you can do on the board. It is, I mean, it's a bit ridiculous with everything in there. And yeah, you maybe spend 5 minutes going around everybody flicking to flick all their 5 discs. And then you have 5 minutes of just everybody heads down on their board, using up their discs, trying to track where everything goes, remembering what bonuses they got. And yeah, there's a lot to it, and it's so satisfying as you fill everything in because of all those bonuses. And then you have the randomness of flicking, and it really is random because everybody's bonking into each other. It's not a massive board. You don't flick, take your piece off. You flick, it sits on the board. Other people can bump into it, knock it into areas that you maybe didn't want to go, or maybe knock you out of an area that you're glad about because it's not an area you're trying to score. So that was number 38. 37 is going to be another small game, and this one is new to the list this year. It's Comic Hunters. So Comic Hunters has actually been out for a little bit, but not in the US. So Comic Hunters is a game about collecting Marvel comics. And that's what took it forever to show up in the US, is it's Marvel artwork, and it's so much Marvel artwork. It's not like, oh, here's an old comic. The old comics have 3 different covers. No. It is a different cover, different piece of artwork on every single comic. And the game is basically just a drafting game of building out your comic book collection. How you do that is, well, it varies. Sometimes it's just you take a comic from a hand of cards, pass the cards along. Other times, I guess the best way to say it's kind of like a sliding puzzle. And you can slide one card through kind of the open spots, and you're trying to create a row or a column that you can pick all the comics of a single character from. Or there's what's known, I believe, in Magic terms as a Winston draft, where there's a card, and you can decide to take that card, or you can put another card in that pile, basically. It's a similar concept to that in Comic Hunters. And so, there's 4 different ways that you draft. One is less of a draft, more of an auction. but 4 different ways that you get your comics to build out your collection. But you can't just, of course, get comics. Comics aren't free. People spend lots of money on comics. I've spent a good amount of money on comics. So instead of just getting the comics, you have to decide from those comics that you've drafted over 3 different drafts, 3 different times. At the end of each of those sets of 3 drafts, you have to decide what you want to keep and pay for them with the ones that you don't. So it's a really interesting situation of later drafts. You might be like, well, I know what I want to keep here, so I'm going to just draft for high value comics that I can use to pay for comics with fewer comics. And the scoring works well as well. You score in a number of different areas, such as like first appearance of like a costume change, a particularly interesting battle, like face-off between characters. That can change every time. The comic book character that you want to get the most of, that has the highest value, that changes every time. Plus you're doing set collection of just how many you can get of certain characters, but also with those characters, different characters, how many different characters, different sets you can have. So there's a lot going on for a game that's not super complicated, and I really appreciate that about it. It's an easy game to teach and play. Next up, we have at 36 here, I believe 36, Sushi Go Party. This is actually another drafting game, and this one is purely just a drafting game, but you're drafting for your best kind of sushi meal. And you draft it over 3 different hands. And as you draft, you are creating sets, and all of that's going to score you points. And then you do it again. You do it one more time. Except you accumulate desserts through the whole time. And those desserts are going to score you points at the end of the game as well. So you're bouncing, shooting for scoring there, but also not neglecting scoring in the round itself. What I really like about Sushi Go Party 2 is it offers a ton of variety. So I think you have, I forget the combination of what it is. I think 3 entrees, a dessert, 2 specials, your normal rolls, and then 2 appetizers. And most of those things are variable. So you might have 3-4 different desserts that you can choose from, and you're picking one of those. So you can make it as kind of straightforward and simple as you want, or you can make it cutthroat. You can do a ton of different things with it. And I really appreciate how that works within the game. Plus it plays up to 8. It doesn't slow down much at 8. It slows down a little bit. Or is it 6? Either way, I think it's 8. Either way, you play a lot of people, and it works well. Next up, we have a roll and write game here as well. We have Trek 12. This one is a mountain climbing game. I put in quotes, it's not really a mountain climbing game. This game is about creating runs and sets of numbers on your mountain. And you're doing that based off of 2 dice that are rolled. But how you do that based off of those 2 dice is where a really fun part of the puzzle of the game comes in, because you have different things that you're doing. You're either taking the highest die number, or the lowest die number, or that added value, or the difference between the two. It has to be a positive difference, or 0. But I really like that. I really like trying to just figure it out and figure how it works. And this is another one. Doesn't matter how many people you have, it's always going to play in the same time, basically, because you roll the dice and everybody decides what they want to do. And they decide where they want to start. And then you're building off from that spot, and you get points for the larger sets you have. You get points for longer runs you have. And you just get like so many different combinations of points that it works. It works well. And yeah, it's a fun game, and you want everything to connect too, because if it doesn't connect, that's negative points, at least to something else. So there's a lot to think about in the game, but in a game that doesn't offer too large a decision breadth, which I appreciate that about this one. It's a good, fun roll and write game. And now we're back to something much bigger with Marvel Zombies. I need to play my copy, but I have played a few times. And Marvel Zombies is a great zombicide game where you can either play as the zombies, or if you're not feeling playing as the zombies, they do have heroes you can play as and scenarios they can do against the zombies. This is another one of those games like Cthulhu Death May Die, again from CMOD, where you aren't just playing a campaign. You're playing these different scenarios, and each of those scenarios provides some element of framework to the story, but the game itself has so much good story to it that it's just a fun experience. Plus, it's fun to play as zombie versions of heroes fighting off shield agents and other heroes. It's just a good time. Plus, this has a fun leveling up system, because as you level up, you're unlocking new abilities. Of course, you're also kind of riding this edge, much like with Cthulhu Death May Die, though it's a much tighter edge, tighter line of your hunger. You're trying not to go too hungry, because if you go too hungry, you're really limited in what you can do. You just need to go bite somebody to reduce your hunger. Eat some of those brains, which, if you let it get that far, that could put you in a really bad situation, put you in a really bad spot. So it works well. I do regret a little bit the fact that I don't have the giant Galactus for this. I may track it down eventually because it looks awesome. And that is used in some scenarios, though you only get those scenarios if you get the giant Galactus. So I need to search that. I need to find that. Next up, we're going to have another small roll and write, actually. So 3 roll and writes on this list. The Isle of Cats, Explore and Draw. Now, the regular Isle of Cats doesn't make the list. I do enjoy that game quite well, but the Explore and Draw to me is just that little step better. And I did see that they announced Isle of Cats Duel, I think it is. Basically a 2-person version of Isle of Cats, which I wonder if that would help my enjoyment of the game, because I've only played 2, and I do think that some of the drafting can fall apart a little bit with that. But anyways, we're here to talk about the Explore and Draw. The Explore and Draw still is great because you're doing the same thing. You're basically trying to rescue cats, but you're activating a column of cards. So you're activating 3 cards out of one of, I believe, 4 columns. And those 3 cards, it's cats on your board, treasure on your board, or a goal scoring objective that you're checking off that you're going to score at the end of the game. So it's this fun bounce, that push and pull of, I want to grab scoring objectives, but if I do that, I'm not getting enough cats on the board. If I'm not getting enough cats on the board, doesn't matter the scoring objectives I have, because I'm not going to score enough points. And they give you a few different ways to break those rules as well, which is fun because you can look like, okay, I really want that scoring, but the rest of that's not that great for me. So let me activate this ability that allows me to pick one card from each column or something like that, or pick an extra card. Yeah, this one is just a fun time and not too complex to teach, which I appreciate. Then I believe was this 33 now? Sleeping Gods. So we're back to a big game, a big campaign style game here. Though I say campaign, it's really when I talk about campaign, I did put it on my holiday list for campaign games. This one kind of floats on that edge. It's not really scenarios or a specific story that you're walking through, but this is an open sandbox game where you're exploring a whole different world to try and get back to Earth. The story is you've sailed into this new world of sleeping gods, and you have been tasked with waking up these gods. And to be able to do that, you have to find totems. If you find enough, if you complete it, well, you get to go back home. Otherwise, you may be stuck there forever. And you control the whole crew of the ship, which sounds intimidating. I think it's 9 crew, including the captain. It's less intimidating than you think because nobody has like a separating action. Everybody moves as a unit around the board, basically going where the ship goes to different pieces of the board. And I really like that about the game because it offers this interesting, kind of unique way of handling it where you have that diversity in the characters and special powers, but you're still activating everything kind of as one. It makes something that feels really intimidating with the number of cards you potentially may have and everything in front of you, and makes it simpler because, I'm just building up this one guy to be a really good fighter. So let him fight. I do need to play Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. I've heard that makes it a little bit better even. And with Sleeping Gods, I was playing one rule that I believe they added to Distant Skies. I was playing it wrong, but you can check out that on my playthrough. See if you can catch which rule I was getting wrong there. But Sleeping Gods is a really fun game. I say it's campaign because it's 15 hours or so to play through the whole thing, and that's a lot of time. You're not going to probably leave it set up. You're not going to play it in one sitting. It gives you baggies and stuff to save it. So it's not bad for saving. It's not bad to tear down and set up even. So it's just a really fun game that gives you that campaign game, but with a story that is purely sandbox, and you can explore the world and decide what you want to get involved with. Then next up, I believe this is the last one. So that Sleeping Gods was 32. This, I believe, is 31, The Great Split. We may be surprised when I hit the button again. But The Great Split is a fun I split you choose game. And it is purely built around that mechanism. You are art collectors or antiquities collectors. It might be different types of art you're collecting. Doesn't really matter. You're basically collecting and going up on tracks, building out your collection in 4 different areas, plus getting money as well, which can help boost up other scoring, and trying to get contracts which are going to boost up additional scoring. So you're really working on a lot of different things, and sometimes you're like, you know what? Sorry, like there's 2 different types of colors of artwork, blue and green. You score your lowest at one point in the game. maybe it's 2 points in the game, I forget. But either way, you scored at 1 point in the game, and then you might just decide, you know what, screw it, I can't go up on blue anymore. I'm just going to go up on green. I'm going to work on getting green contracts and really push for scoring over there. So there's a lot of fun to it, and the I split you choose mechanism in here works really well. They give you a card that matches your board, and that's your divider for I split you choose. You pass it, that person looks at the two sides, picks which one they want, gives it back to you. That's basically what I split you choose means. I split those cards into two groups. They decide which one they want, and then okay, there was a momentary freeze there, and then they give it back without those cards, the ones that they took. But that divider, for you as the player who's doing the split, you get that divider back no matter what, and that is a wild card for you to use every single round. So while there is a bunch going on in the game, I really enjoy how it works, and when you get into it, it is not a complex game. It just has some nuances to understand with the scoring. But yes, that is everything from 40 all the way up to 31. Let me know what you think of the games on this list. Do you have one of them that stands out to you as a favorite of these that I've played? Or is there one on the list that you really want to try? Let me know that down in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. So I put out videos 3 times a week here. All of them are live thus far. That may be changing TBD. But Mondays, right now I'm doing small solo games. That may change to when I do my campaign solo gaming on Monday nights. Wednesdays, right now, it's the top 100 games of all time. I have 30 through 21 next week, then 20 through 11, and the top 10. So only 3 weeks left of this. I will let people know when that final week is going to be. It might have a break in there because of Thanksgiving, but that's to be determined. And I do these videos every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Central. On Mondays, that's in between 8 and 8:30 p.m. Central most of the time. And finally, on Fridays, my wife and I have started playing through Baldur's Gate 3. So that is going to be streaming most Fridays at 9 p.m. Central Time. But if you really want to know when we go live, click that notification bell when you subscribe, and it will let you know whenever a new live video pops up. If you want to check out more videos, obviously I have a big backlog of content, or you can check out articles on board games and other nerdy things over on nerdologist.com. The link for that should be down in the description below. And if you enjoy Marvel as much as I do, movies, comics, TV shows, whatever it might be, you can check out my podcast, 10 Minute Marvel. You can search for that here on YouTube to find it, or wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcast from. But with that, bottoms up.